Hey guys, welcome to another day on the shop. I'm picking up where I just stopped my last video because it's just getting a little bit long. So it's a two-part series of that part. Got my exhaust down here, which I had modified and everything else so it fits what I need as a position and length and everything else for this turbo setup. As of right now, for this turbo setup, we have a KH24DE. Nothing special about it. It's basically a stock rebuild, kind of hackery stock rebuild. The starter's been rebuilt, and there's nothing else. Everything else is just put on there. So we got our intercooler. We got our intake off right now because I had to clean some stuff up on it. In the last episode, I did all that. I'm waiting on a fitting for my turbo line. My turbo is plumbed and all my lines are attached to it minus this side of the oil feed line. So got a new oil filter coming because I'm doing an oil change anyway. Got a new fuel filter, got new fuel lines, and I'm thinking I might have to order a new mass airflow sensor. I showed it in the last video, but show it again. I had this for a couple years and I decided to open it because it sounded like there was debris inside of it, and there still is. So I opened it up and it just looks god awful. So it looks like I'm going to be picking up another one and a pigtail because I misplaced my pigtail for it. So yeah, this setup is going to have 370cc injectors. It's got a T3 turbo on it from an RB. I'm going to be running stock boost, which is I think 8 pounds on that. Got a Deechworks DW200, so we're going to be flowing some fuel. Everything else on this table is slowly dwindling down, and we're getting it on here. My other issue that I'm running into right now is my intake from my hot pipe. My hot pipe is going to come up and maybe go around, and then my intake is, I'm not sure yet. So we're figuring that out as well. I'm trying to get this done so we can go do some burnouts and roast this clutch and then replace the clutch because it's a stock clutch, and have some fun. And yeah, I need to order some coilovers and get some new coilovers in, but I have not done that yet. So let me get down here and throw this exhaust in, and we'll get it done. Alright, so on all my exhaust I like to use copper gasket. It's never failed me. I use it on every exhaust piece just because of the fact of you can have leaks. The expansion and contraction of the metal will ruin your gaskets. So I go ahead and put this between the gasket. Sometimes I don't even put a gasket in there because this just holds up so good. So on the downpipe, we're gonna put some on it and put some on the where's this downpipe? Yeah. We're gonna put some on the turbo elbow as well, and we're gonna knock this all out at once. And then I got the test pipe to do as well. But I've done it on the Camaro, I've done it on my 240 before, where I had leaks, and this got rid of the leaks. So highly recommend using some copper gasket or extra, I can't remember what it's called. Something copper from Permatex. So let's throw this on. So the exhaust is on, and the way I did it with the other mounts that I had, the poly mounts for the motor, it I guess brought the engine up just a little bit, because now with the stock mounts it's actually sitting even further down on the exhaust side, which is good because I didn't want it too close to the body. But in that same aspect is I shouldn't have had to beat the body in now because it fits perfect. So we got stock body or stock motor mounts. The exhaust is in, and we're just working our way down. So brought my intake in from outside. It looks a lot cleaner than it did. Not right here. I need to brush that off a little bit. But make a few phone calls and see if I can find me a couple couplers, because I'm going to need another 2.5 coupler right here to get over to here, and I'm going to need a Z32 math. So with all that, I'm going to look at how bad this intake's going to be down. It doesn't look like I should have an issue right here with putting that other fitting in and then bolting this fitting to it. So I'm hoping that I can just do it all at once and have this intake in, which would be helpful. So we test it, fit this intake. Okay, so we got the exhaust on. Bing! Put the intake on just to look for clearance. Clearance looks okay, but I don't really want to do that yet because I want to get in there and do it right. I don't feel like contorting my hands. I threw the distributor cap on and threw the wires up there. I know these will be fine, but I'm tempted to make a heat shield right here to kind of guard all that from heat. Maybe, I'm not sure yet, but we'll find out. So yeah, I'm just cleaning up for the day. I'm waiting on those parts. I don't like waiting on parts, but you got to do what you got to do, and so I'm waiting on those parts, and as soon as I get those parts in, I'll be throwing them on, and we'll be finishing this thing. So the last thing I can do that I have is I have the ECU. I got the ECU. So other than that, everything else is already in. My table's pretty bare, so I got my front brakes I can do and the ECU, and that's what I need to do next. So yeah, so see you in a few minutes or seconds. Yeah, see you in a little bit with my parts. It's a new day. I've got parts. My one AN fitting that I needed. One fitting. That's the oil line. We're gonna get it together. As well as I got my Ford parts in for the Expedition. So, whole timing job right there. It's a lot of money. I don't like spending that kind of money. That's it's right at $1,000 for a timing job, and that's it. So, alright, so we got one more clamp we got to put on over here, which is right here. Which actually, no, this intake has to come back out so I can do the oil line and put the gasket on and then put all that back on. And once I get all that back on, I just create me an intake. I am missing, I'm going to try this out. I don't think it's going to work, but I'm going to first try the mass airflow sensor that I have already on the car. It's probably going to run like doo-doo, but it's what I got for right now. This mass airflow sensor may or may not work. I could spray a whole bunch of cleaner in it and see if I can get some of that orange out of there, but I'm not sure. I do have a pigtail for it. So I went to the junkyard, there was 300ZX there, picked up a pigtail because somebody had scavenged every bit of everything. The only thing left were brake rotors that I could use and the rear knuckles, and I've already got rear knuckles and I don't need that. So yeah, that sucks because when you go for parts somewhere you can't find them because somebody's already got them, and it's not me. I need them. So let's pop this off, put that fitting on, be done with the oil system, put that back on, be done with the intake, hook up all the other stuff, put my coolant lines back on, and start looking at redoing some oil and redoing the coolant system as a fluid. And then we're going to install the ECU and put an intake on here just to see. probably going to run like crap, but we'll find out what it does. So let's get to that. All right, got all that in. I gotta, like I said, drain the oil and stuff, but other than that, oil's ready to go in it. Stock gasket replacement. So I like using these because they're tried and true and they don't fail easily. Yeah, they're paper, but a little bit of gasket maker just to seal it up a little bit better sometimes helps. So a lot of times I'll just put it around the intake and also the block and just have it seal a little bit better, but also you have to put it around the water seal. So that's what I'm going to do real quick, is put some gasket maker around each runner, and especially the water neck. So once we do that, we'll do it on the intake as well, and then we'll stick everything on, squish it together, let it sit for about 10 minutes, 15 minutes to kind of get rubbery, and then we'll completely put it in after that. Once we do that, it should tack up really well and squish and not have a whole lot of excess or not deform or just squish all out either. So it is something tried and true. So that's what we're going to do with this. Normally you can use like the Right Stuff spray, and that kind of helps tack it up and go on there and seal it better, but I just like using gasket maker because it's just as easy. It's cheaper too. So that's what I'm going to do. Alright, so everything's hooked up as of the intake manifold. I need to run a couple fuel lines. My brake booster line broke, my vacuum line, so it's really dry rotted, and I need to see what I can do towards fixing it. I don't really have another barb fitting that will fit this, and this hose is so old it's just breaking apart. So yeah, I'm going to have to figure something out to finagle that, and then I got to run two fuel lines, and then hook everything else back up as of electronics, and then just bolt that down. So but everything vacuum wise is hooked up other than the brake booster and the two fuel lines that go from the fuel rail to the regulator and the fuel filter to the fuel rail. That's all I got to do with this. And knock that out real quick. Alright, so I found a solution. I found another hose off the hatchback over there, so now this fits. So I'm just going to pop this on there and anchor it down, and it should be good to go. Get to that. Alright, so, yes, alright, and so, intake's on. Everything's on, minus just that wire holder. But fuel lines are ran, they're all on there. Throttle cable's on, radiator hose is on, cold pipe is hooked up, and fuel filter's on, brand new one. The vacuum hose back here is on. And so now the last few things we have to do: hook up an intake, And since I don't have the mass airflow sensor, I just got a text from one of my buddies. They have a SAFC, which is a super airflow computer. So this airflow computer confuses the ECU to think that there's less air flowing than there actually is. So it compensates with giving more fuel, taking fuel away. So I'm going to put this in. It's a thing that was used back in the 2000 to 2010s. So nowadays you just go get, I don't know, there's a couple different things out there, but just this is trickery instead of having a full ROM tune. But I'm putting this on my ROM tuned ECU as well, so that I can calibrate it even more precise, even when I get the correct mass airflow sensor. So unless I just get what I want out of this and it would work perfect, then we'll just stay with this. So that's what we're going to do now, is look at the intake and get that done. And after that, we're going to put this bumper back on because I don't think I need anything else. I'll check all my pipes and clamps and clearance on the bumper, and we'll throw it on, and then it'll be a solid car again. And yeah, and then I'm going to go get this SAFC. So let's get some stuff done. All right, bumper's on, no clearance issues. I've got to bolt up the sides. I need to get another side marker light when I go to my buddy's. I'll see if he has a side marker light. But yeah, I need to bolt up both sides. The lights are in. About to change some oil, and hopefully I come back with the pipes I need to finish this off, because I would love to hear this run tonight, and I'm hoping I can. Because I wouldn't mind taking it out tomorrow and just seeing what it does, if I can get everything situated. So yeah, that's what we're doing. So we will be back in a few when I go after I go to my friend's house, and see you in a few. Oil is changed, water going in the radiator. So making sure we don't have any leaks as we go around, and just filling up the whole system. We're going to try and do it as good as we can without running the car right now. Once we find out if there's any leaks or not, then we'll go from there and warm this up with some more water and water wetter. So, if you've never used one of these funnel systems, they're the greatest thing in the world. I'll put a link in the description down below for them. But they come with all sorts of adapters. And as soon as you get done and you still have fluid in here, you have a little stopper. You just shove the stopper in there and it stops the flow of it. So, also bleeds the system very well. So I've got my air bleeder screw right here. It's undone just enough to let some air out. So I've got a lot of water to go in there. I think it's like 2 gallons, maybe a little bit more. So that's what we're putting in. So distilled water. Doing it right, not tap water. All right, let's get back to it. All right, so I'm back from my friend's house. It's actually the next day. Got the Apexy super airflow converter, not computer. Got that. He also had a dual stage boost controller, which I'm not going to be using right now. And then got my elbow. So yeah, this will be used later if I want to blow up my motor, and it's a contemplation towards doing it. But what this does is sets the high and the low. So you have the low setting as a permanent setting, and then you click a toggle switch or anything like that to switch on the power to this, and it switches to the higher boost setting. And once you do that, you have range from a low boost setting, which could be like stock 8 psi or 10 psi, up to about 20 psi on the high setting. So you have 2 stages of boost, which is pretty cool to me. It's not manual, other than setting your parameters beforehand. So you use these little toggles up here and you switch them over to whatever boost setting you want, and then you set it, forget it, and just flip the switch. I am missing one piece to it, which is the vacuum T that goes between the wastegate and the turbo itself, and so I could use it, but I just want stock PSI for right now. So with this elbow that I got, we're going to be putting my air filter in here as the intake with the stock mass airflow sensor. So with that, we're going back to the stock computer. So it's a little change up now. Because we're going to be using this, we don't need a tuned ECU, which kind of helps out a little bit better. But using this, we can play with the parameters and all that. When I do get a mass airflow sensor, I can switch back to the tuned ECU, which advances the timing and is already set for the injectors and everything else. So then I won't have to use the piggyback, but using the piggyback can precisely tune my injector flow with air, so air fuel ratio. So got water sitting in here, still need to get more water into the engine and get this elbow on. So I'm going to get this intake hooked up, and then we are going to hook up the computer, hook up the SAFC, and then we're going to get some oil ran through the motor. What we're going to do is we are going to unplug the injectors and just not have them fire off, and the ignition coil. So those two things we're going to have off the car, so we don't have to worry about being or starting the car while we're trying to get oil through it. So intake time. A lot of work. I didn't film anything, sorry. We're all hooked up there. Got the intake on. Water's still there. Hooked up the battery, cleaned it up because it was pretty nasty before. Hooked up the SAFC. Hooked up the ECU. We got a light on down there, so it shows we got power. So now, let's crank this thing over. Let me undo the ignition. Once I undo the ignition, we'll crank it up and just see if we can get some oil ran through it, and then we'll set parameters. But I just want to try and crank it real quick just to get some oil ran through it. So, what I'm going to do. Okay, so I went through, I found some leaks. I didn't tighten down my fuel lines all the way. And since they're new, they're a little bit thicker as well, so they weren't sealing properly. So I snugged them down. Got a horrible headache from way too much fuel smell. Alright, the next thing I did was I finally, took me a while because the wiring kind of screwy. I'll put the wiring in the description below for the SAFC2. It's all wired up into the ECU right there. It's going to go in the glove box for safekeeping, because once I set it I don't need to really mess with it again unless I just want to look at it, but I don't really have a point. I've got a air fuel ratio and I've got a boost gauge, so I can take care of everything with that. So I'm going to turn this over again and just get some oil moving and make sure I have no more leaks, and then we're going to set the parameters of the SAFC, and then we'll get this thing running. Settings are in the SAFC, if I can say it right. Injectors are being hooked back up, and we are ready to try and start this thing. Alright, so everything's hooked back up. Everything. Exhaust, this and the other, blah, 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 blah. Fingers crossed that this thing starts up and goes right. So, start this thing. Well, after finding a loose ground, we're gonna get back to this. So, let's try this again. you know what's crazy is, as you see all over the lens, hold on. There's a lot of it. That's a mixture of fuel and oil. So yeah, down here is a mixture of fuel and oil, and that's showing me exactly where I'm having a hole in my manifold. And I'm hoping that's all I got. We'll find out. But compression's still good, so I don't understand. So compression's still good, I know, in 2 and 3. I'm going to check 1 and 4. 1 and 4. And I know I have a hole in the manifold right down here. So I just need to find the hole in the manifold where the fuel is coming out of. And hopefully I'm not overpowering this thing with oil. So I'm blowing my seal on it. Hopefully. So let's check the compression on 1 and 4, because these two were 150 and 1 and 4 should be around hopefully 150 as well, like it was before. And then blow some smoke in here and find out where this leak is. Throw some weld on it and call it a day with that. And then go from there to resetting this tune and starting over on the tune, because it's blowing way too much oil out, or way too much fuel out. So let's get back to it. Well, I learned this thing can run off 1 cylinder. On top of, I haven't gotten anywhere. So we're going to step back and come at this in a day or two, because I just don't know which way to go with it right now. So I'm going to contact a couple people, see what's going on with them, and what their advice is towards the tuning of this, because it's not going as it should for me. So yeah, we're gonna go one way, and then we might go another way afterwards. I'm not sure. So yeah, I'll get back to you. Okay, so I'm being really lazy. I know I'm kind of stuck. I'm not taking the manifold back off to find the hole. I've kind of find a general area of where the hole is. It's down here, all in this crappy weld right here. So I'm going to weld this up right here. There's a brace right here. I'm just going to fill this up with some weld and pray that that little section right there is the culprit. I think it is. So that's where everything's coming out of. So it's right around that area. So what we're going to do is we're just going to fill it in. I've already cleaned it up, took the intercooler, the hot pipe off, and yeah, so we're going to do that. I want to create a heat shield around this out of some metal of some sort, so that this doesn't burn all this and it doesn't interfere with anything back there. So I don't know what I want to use. I got some metal lying around. I got some plates, and that's what normally people use. I might have enough of a plate to use, or two, because those are all kind of antique tags, minus that one up there that's already been cut on. But yeah, we'll find out what I can do with it, and we'll make a heat bracket, or a heat shield for the brake booster. I also found a small little leak in this fitting down here. I snugged it up even further, so I got to retop that off and bleed it again. Watch out for that. It'll eat your paint, it'll eat your metal. Don't get brake fluid everywhere. Alright, so I'm going to hop in here and just weld that all up, and cross my fingers and pray that it handles it. So let me get to it. Okay, so yeah, that's some god-awful welds. I'm hoping that solves the problem. if I ever pull this thing back off, I'll redo that. But since this thing's not the most important thing in the world to me, it is what it is. So back to getting this thing tuned and everything. Just added some VP Racing cool down. Says additive in my radiator. I'm going to use some more of this in my pickup truck to help with towing. It's for any application really, and with or without coolant. So I don't use coolant in this car because I've taken the radiator out so many times working on it. I don't see the point in spending $15–20 on coolant every single time I pull this thing out. It also doesn't get that cold most of the year. Like 99% of the year it doesn't get below freezing. This year it's gotten below freezing like 4 times, which is crazy. Last year it was more like 2. But I keep a garage and warm during those days. So we're going to crank this thing and see how the tune goes. And maybe, just maybe, I might get this out of the garage today. Fingers crossed. Alright, for some reason I'm losing power between the battery and the starter. It starts kicking over and then it slowly stops. So I don't know if there's fluid in there and it's just not wanting to crank over or what. Got a battery jumper on it, got a battery charger on it, and now we're going to start it up, hopefully this time. I already tried to start once. Let's try this again. Alright, well, we haven't gotten it sorted yet. It starts, doesn't sound the greatest, because something is either timing or I got a vacuum leak. Yeah, it takes a little bit of throttle to crank it up. So as you see, it's not running right. It shouldn't be bouncing like that. So like I said, I think I have a vacuum leak. It almost sounds like it's over here on this side, but I'm looking for it. So we've done a lot in this video, and I don't want to keep y'all strung along for another hour. So thank you for joining into another episode of The Shop. If you liked what you saw, please subscribe and continue to watch. Give me a like. Check out Teespring merchandise, Instagram, Facebook, and TikTok. So we're going to figure this out. Next time you see it, we'll be driving down the road, not like this. So, till next time.